Hey, it's Kate. As Shofar So Good makes its way out in the world, different people have shared ideas with me, like, hey, you should talk to this person, or you should think about this. And a lot of that I'm hoping will show up in season 2. But for now, I want to share a bonus conversation with Jonah Platt. Jonah Platt is multi-talented, to say the least. He's an artist, performer, activist, master's degree student, as I learned, and he's also the host of Being Jewish with Jonah Platt. In his podcast, Jonah sits down with really successful people to talk about their relationship to Judaism and sometimes current events, always with the goal of instilling a sense of Jewish pride and empowerment in his listeners. I'm excited to share the conversation with you. Jonah, thank you so much for talking to me.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm really excited to talk to you about what it means to be Jewish. I was wondering if you can start really at the beginning. I want to know about your childhood and what being, not all of your childhood, but which parts, I don't know, how were you raised? How did Judaism play a role in that?
Yeah, Judaism played a major role in how I was raised. Very traditionally conservative family. So celebrating all the holidays, went to Jewish day school from mommy and me through 8th grade, Jewish sleepaway camp from age 8 to 18 as a camper and a counselor. My whole extended family on both sides, all conservative, all very connected Jewishly and to each other. So even though I grew up with no grandparents or aunts or uncles or first cousins in Los Angeles with me, I saw them all the time because we were always traveling to each other for holidays. And my mom's side, all the cousins went to camp together every summer at this Jewish sleepaway camp. And being close to each other was important to each generation. Yeah. So the grandparents' generation, the siblings, they were all close, and then their children and spouses and first cousins are all close, and then my generation, everybody was close. Judaism is family, first and foremost, because of how I was raised.
Yeah, lucky you.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
Did you ever, within that, obviously, so it sounds like there was a lot of cultural things that you guys had in common. Also, it sounds like you're going to synagogue. Was there any doubt or any time that you...
Yes, so that was like, on the religious side of things, that was the definition of how I engaged with faith and still do. Mm-hmm. My rabbi is a guy named Rabbi David Wolpe, very well-known rabbi who's been my rabbi since I was born. And he likes to fondly recall how, when I was 12 years old, he and I took a walk around the block and I asked him like 1,000 questions about God. Mm-hmm. I still have a lot of questions about God. I don't know if I believe in God. I'd say probably it depends which day you ask me. I lean towards no, which is sad. I sort of wish I did. It's a lot more comforting.
Yeah.
But I'm just faith is tough for me. I'm a very, very logical, sort of grounded person, and faith is believing in something you can't see, and I have a hard time with that.
Yeah, definitely. But I think what a beautiful thing that you could still be Jewish and still have it so much a part of your life. And the belief in God is almost secondary.
Yeah, for me it definitely is. And it's to me, being Jewish it's the people. Whether I believe a single thing or speak a single letter of Hebrew, I'm Jewish no matter what. I did, Ancestry.com. I'm 100% Ashkenazi Jew. And the rituals and the values have so much meaning, and I love them, and the wisdom of what it is to be Jewish and how to live your life as a human being, all of the way that Judaism prescribes for you to do that, I love. Mm-hmm. And the God piece I struggle with, but that's so much of Judaism's heritage too, is asking these questions and debating rigorously all of this stuff. So to me, they fit together quite nicely.
That's interesting that it's almost like the doubt that does make you more Jewish.
Yeah, in a way. Yeah, Jews are thinkers. Jews are questioners. Constantly debating stuff. So it to me, I think it fits right in.
Yeah. Did your rabbi have an answer, or did he let you?
Oh gosh, I don't remember, honestly. I have a bad memory for stuff like that. I remember the event, but I do not remember the questions asked. But, I would always ask questions like, if the Bible begins with Genesis, like what was happening before that? Was God just like sitting around being like, I think I'll create the world now. Today's the day. And like when I go to questions like that, that's where I would struggle because like there is no answer for that.
Right.
And that's where the faith comes in. And I don't know. I have a tricky time with it.
And so how did you end up on the path of activism?
I ended up on the path of activism starting in like spring of 2021 when there was violence in Israel between Gaza and Israel. It was really convoluted. It was like around this Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood, if you remember that whole incident. Like people were getting evicted and there was protests and then rockets and all of this stuff. And I had a somewhat of a social media platform, a couple tens of thousands of followers, but not like enormous, through my entertainment stuff. And I observed that people were confused. I felt like I could help clarify some stuff. I also observed that people within my community, people I knew, didn't know how to voice their experience in this moment, and I felt like I could sort of help do that too. So I just sort of organically did that a little bit online, a little bit of education and clarification and giving voice to emotions, and they were well received, and people saying this is what we would like to hear. And that started me on my path quite slowly. I was still very focused on career stuff, not that. And it just sort of picked up over time in the last 4 or 5 years. And a couple of different things along the way. It depends if you want like the medium length story or the really long length story. But it picked up speed. And then, of course, October 7th happened. Right. And that's when my ratio completely flipped from, 10% advocacy, 90% focus on entertainment to the opposite.
Interesting. So it's 10% entertainment now.
Yes. My day-to-day right now is pretty much entirely Jewish advocacy and my podcast. And I'm getting a master's in anti-Semitism studies.
Really?
And that's my main focus right now.
I'm interested that it sounds like the things that really galvanized you were things that happened abroad. And I asked that because a moment for me, I was raised in LA. Everyone was Jewish. No question about it. It just wasn't even a thing to not be Jewish. And that's kind of what even made me feel like an outsider because I wasn't Jewish enough. But I was living in West Virginia when the Tree of Life shooting happened. And that was a hugely impactful thing to me. I think more than what's happened abroad. And I wonder how you think about these two landscapes.
That's interesting. I know Dara Horn was really who I have had on my show. That episode's coming out soon, and who I really look to in this space as a brilliant mind. That was very galvanizing for her. I don't know why. It's a great question. Like, it didn't quite hit me. I think like thinking about it right now in real time, I think a couple of things. One is like it's horrible. There's so many mass shootings in America. It's like, oh, there's another mass shooting. And the fact that it was Jews, like, well, Dylan Roof shot up a church. It's like people just shoot up groups of people. Like, this is what happens in America. To me, it felt more like a gun violence America thing, I think, than a Jewish thing. Although obviously it was a Jewish thing. I mean, it was very specifically going after Jews, but it's like it was such a isolated incident. It's not like there were I think there was a rash of attacks against Jews in the 2010s for sure. Yeah. But even let's say there were 5, that's hundreds of that's so much of that's not that many in the grand scheme of life, I guess is what I'm saying. So it didn't really it didn't make a big ripple in the culture. Like, it wasn't something the world was talking about, and it didn't affect my day-to-day life in any way. October 7th and its fallout have affected my life every minute of every day in a way that those shootings did not.
Do you feel different, I don't know, between October 8th and March 2025?
In terms of what?
I don't know, just the way you think about either your passion for fighting anti-Semitism or interest in world events. I don't know, the way you think about these things.
Yeah, I mean it's how I spend most of my brain time is thinking about these things now. And I would say like if I had to label my mission, like it's not fighting anti-Semitism.
Okay.
It's empowering Jews. That to me is a lot more important and also helps solve the fighting anti-Semitism. I think actually is the number one antidote for fighting anti-Semitism is Jewish empowerment. But that's the angle at which I prefer to go at it, is helping Jews to respect themselves and be loud and proud and to speak up and to live openly, fully, Jewishly, proudly. That to me is my goal. And I think if we do that, then other things will follow.
And how does that play in with the masters in anti-Semitism?
Basically, that part is like, because I'm talking about this stuff all the time, and look, it's not like I don't deal with anti-Semitism. I talk about that stuff a lot.
Yeah.
I just, honestly, it's twofold. One is I'm really interested in it. Like, I've really enjoyed the classes, and I like becoming more and more educated on this stuff. Like, I'm already pretty educated for a layman, but the fact that in a year or two I'll be able to say to somebody, hey, guess what? I'm a master in this, so shut up. Like, I'm a literal master.
Right.
First of all, that sounds fun, and also I think it's going to help. I mean, it's definitely going to be useful in the comments section. That's for sure.
Okay, so you're bolstering your defense.
I'm bolstering my street cred.
Your street cred.
I'm bolstering my street cred, and then also, just as I move about the world and talk about this stuff, my confidence is only growing as I'm learning more and more and more, and my understanding is deepening.
Yeah.
And I'm able to deliver more useful, nuanced insights that can benefit other people the more knowledgeable I am.
Is there anything that you've learned that's surprised you?
Yeah, I would say what surprised me is how parallel the time we're living in now is in so many ways to 1930s Europe.
Really?
It's just like I started writing down literally like sentences. Like I have a document where like I'll be reading a book about the Holocaust and I'm like, this could have been written yesterday. I actually have it open. Hold on.
Yeah, I'd be really curious.
I'll read you a good one. I thought this was a nice one that I'm writing a paper for one of my classes about the way how helpful or not were assimilated Jews in Western Europe to Eastern European Jews and German Jews fleeing the Nazis. And some stuff I wrote down was like, they're talking about Jews, like, are they self-hating Jews? And this one guy described it not as self-hatred, but as the desire to liberate the self from compromising affiliations. And I thought that was a really good way to put what I've been identifying in a lot of Jews who today would rather not be affiliated with the socially compromising Jews who support Israel. And so maybe they're not self-hating. They don't hate that. They like being Jewish. They just don't, it's compromising for them to be affiliated with other Jews. So like seeing that was like, yeah, that's exactly what I think about. Here's another one. In response to anti-Semitic attacks, many Jews who had hitherto been on the fringe of involvement in the community felt driven to adopt a more assertively Jewish posture, saw an enthusiastic rediscovery of Jewish religion and culture, and growth in support for Zionism. I mean, that could have been written yesterday, and that's about 1930s Europe. The exact thing's happening right now. I mean, we're seeing a Jewish Renaissance. We're seeing people, I mean, I'm a living example of it, and everybody I talk to on my show and all of my audience are all living examples of it. We're seeing new engagement, people who didn't send their kids to day school are sending their kids to day school, people who didn't do Shabbat are doing Shabbat, people who didn't get bat mitzvahs and bar mitzvahs are becoming adult bar and bat mitzvahs.
Yeah.
And it's in the response to the insane anti-Semitism we've seen over the last 18 months, even though the loud fringe minority makes it seem, that it's at an all-time low. It's actually at an all-time high. I mean, the engaged Jews have never felt more connected to Israel.
Interesting observation. I love the podcast, and I love the monologue that you start with. Have there been guests or things said on the podcast that have challenged you or surprised you in any way that you didn't prepare for or didn't?
Yeah, I mean, often there are a couple of challenges like that'll pop up, and basically the decision I've made and how I host the show is to not. I never want to get into it with my guests in in a combative way.
Yeah.
Sometimes that annoys my audience. They'll be like, why didn't you push back harder? And for me, it's like, it's just not the atmosphere I'm trying to create on this show. Like, so yesterday, I recorded Sheryl Sandberg. It's a great episode.
Yeah.
It's also the one where I shout out this podcast.
Oh, thank you. That's a great.
Yep.
I feel
a lot of people
lucky.
are going to see that one.
Yeah.
And she told a story that brought tears to her eyes, and she said, "I've never told this story before." And that's what I'm looking for on my show. And I've gotten that many times on my show of, I've never said this before. I've never said this out loud. And you don't get that if you're creating an atmosphere where people have their guards up or they feel like they're going to have to get into an argument. You get that by creating a really non-judgmental, safe, warm, inviting environment.
Yeah.
And I'm way more interested in letting interesting, smart people deliver their ideas, whether I agree with them or not, and then letting people, judge them on their own merits for themselves without me needing to insert my own feelings about it. I will. That's not to say I'm like, I push back on certain things, and I will follow up with a question about something.
Yeah. So take that back to Jewish pride for me.
Take that back to Jewish pride. Well, everybody, the one common denominator of all of my guests is they all love Jews. They either love being Jewish or they're an ally who loves supporting Jews.
Yeah.
So, sometimes it's funny. Everybody thinks they know what your podcast should be. I'm sure that's how everything is with every, whenever you make something, random people think know what you should do with it.
Right.
And so I'm getting that love you should have this person on to have this conversation. And I'll be like, well, that person hates Israel. And that's not the conversation I want. That's not my show.
Sure.
There are other shows that do that probably very well, and they have great value. But I think it's important to pick a lane. And it's not like I'm arbitrarily picking it, and I would never stray outside of it and would never try to do anything different. But that's the lane I think is the most useful, and it's certainly what I like doing, and it makes me feel good. I know it makes my audience feel good. I've gotten comment after letter of people saying, this show feels like home. This show is comforting. That's always been my goal, is that this could be a home and community for anybody who is, a decent, well-meaning human being who has love in their heart and wants to feel like they're in a place of truth and nuance and understanding and inclusivity, and is not coming to have they can let their guard down for an hour,
right?
In a world where right now we all have our guards up constantly.
In a lot of ways, you are an expert. You're getting a master's. You're a voice. You're a beacon. I'm wondering if there are any questions that you still have.
Totally. What I'm starting to try to want to know more about now, inspired by one of the guests on my show, is I want to know more about Jewish wisdom. Sarah Hurwitz is an author of the book Here All Along.
Yeah.
And I loved our conversation that we had on the show, and reading her book in prep for it. Whenever I have a guest with a book, I always read the book.
Good.
And so prepping for that and then talking to her, I felt inspired to... I'm somebody who loves reading. I love thinking about things. I like debating intellectual ideas. Why have I not, dived into Jewish texts?
Yeah.
And I think, for me, it comes from a few different places. One of which is my first introduction to that sort of world was through my Jewish day school. when I was in middle school, and I like hated it. I didn't like my teachers. I didn't like the way it was taught. I was getting in trouble all the time. It just like the whole thing it always felt like being force fed, and that it was boring, and that it was like homework. Which, you know, that's fair enough for a 12-year-old boy with ADHD. Like, we're going to sit and talk for half an hour about, like, there are 4 kinds of man. One is this kind of learner. I was like, this sucks. This is so boring. But now as an adult, when, you know, we're searching for wisdom, and it's fun, like Sarah brought it up. She's like, Jews are really intellectually hungry, and they don't know that Judaism has this wisdom. So they turn to, you know, self-help, and they turn to Buddhism, and I'm like, I turn to both of those things, you know. And so now I want to turn to my own rich, you know, treasure trove of knowledge. And so like I started I was like, where do I start? I asked Sarah. She was like, why don't you start with the parsha of the week? Like, just start there, read some commentary about the parsha each week. So I've been doing that for the last 3 weeks. I just started it.
Wow. Okay.
And so I bought this series of books from Rabbi Jonathan Sachs of blessed memory, who has this 5-book series where he writes like 3 or 4 little commentaries, like from 4 different angles on each week's parsha. And that's what I read each week now. I read the little commentaries, and I'm starting my Jewish wisdom journey there.
That's great. I really liked that conversation you guys had. It made me really think.
Thank you.
I have so much self-consciousness about not being really raised Jewish enough, and to hear you guys talk about, like a lot of people I think have different, it's not just me, but also that like it shouldn't stop when you're 13. Like there's so much to learn.
That's where it's got to start.
Yeah.
And I hope you watched my thing about there's no bad Jews. Everybody's got a different thing, especially in America. You know, we're so assimilated. Like the amount that you were given as a child of like Jewish literacy in no way correlates to how Jewish you are. And I forget who said this. I wish I remembered. I don't know if it was Lichtenstein or another guest or a not on the pod altogether. Maybe it was him. But the idea that like, you know, the religious ritual of, you know, let's say keeping kosher, that's one facet of Jewish observance. Then there's, you know, the 613 mitzvot and the way that we're supposed to behave in the world. I would argue if you do those things, that's even more important and more Jewish than if you did none of the other kinds of laws. And who's to say that just because you're following all the like ritual restrictive laws, that makes you more quote unquote Jewish than somebody who is living all of the Jewish values in an active real life kind of way? To me, that's a holier way of being perhaps than the other. So that's something I think Jews really need to keep in mind too, that you can be extremely Jewish in how you live your life, whether you follow a single ritual or law or not, if it's about the values and the actions that you embody. Yeah.
I can't think of a more Jewish feeling than that. And I really appreciate you saying that and bringing all this wisdom to people like me and empowering us.
It's what I'm all about. I derive great nachas from it.
Define nachas.
I think nachas is like pride, like in your children almost.
Okay.
Like your kids give you nachas when they're doing stuff. Okay. So it gives me that to like see other people be empowered.
Yeah, I love that. And thanks for being part of this podcast.
You got it. Thanks for having me, Kate.
Thanks for listening to this conversation. We're still fundraising for season 2, so please be sure to visit shofarsoggoodpodcast.com/support. And please tell a friend about the podcast to help spread the word. That would really help. This episode was produced by me. Music composed and performed by my mom, Nan Schwartz. Artwork by my sister, Laura Mishkin. This project was made with support from the Jewish Writers Initiative Digital Storytellers Lab, a project of the Maimonides Fund. Many thanks to Janine Oakman, Sarah Lefton, and Rebecca Friedman. And many thanks this time to Robert Mishkin, Allison Mishkin, Barbara Mutnick, and the entire 2024 Jewish Writers Initiative cohort. I'm Kate Mishkin. Thanks for listening.